Today, we're going on a tour of a bustling, microscopic metropolis, a city so incredibly complex that it runs everything, from a tiny blade of grass all the way up to you. We're about to open the gates to the fundamental unit of all life, the cell. But first, let's start with a really big question. Just look around you. You see living things and you see non-living things. What exactly is the dividing line between, say, a rock and a rose? What is that secret ingredient that separates life from non-life? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. It's the presence of just one thing, the cell. This tiny, incredible structure is the stage where the entire drama of life plays out.
So what is it about the cell that makes it the secret ingredient to being alive? Let's dive in and break that down.
Think about it this way. A single-celled organism, just one cell, can live all by itself doing everything it needs to survive. But if you take anything less than a full cell, like just its nucleus or a piece of its membrane, it can't sustain life on its own. So the key takeaway here is that the cell is the absolute minimum package required to be alive.
Okay, so how did we even figure all this stuff out? Well, it wasn't just one aha moment. It was actually a series of brilliant discoveries building on top of each other over centuries to create what we now call the cell theory. You can think of it as the constitution for all of biology.
It all kicks off way back in the 1670s. A guy named Antony von Leeuwenhoek peers through his microscope, and he becomes the first human being to ever actually see a living cell. Wild, right? But then it takes over 150 years for the next huge leaps forward. In 1838, Matthias Schwedian figures out that all plants are made of cells. And just 1 year later, Theodor Schwann realizes, hey, the same is true for animals. But there was still a big piece of the puzzle missing. And this is where Rudolf Virchow steps onto the scene. In 1855, he offers up a simple Latin phrase that completely changes biology forever. Omnis cellula e cellula. It means all cells arise from pre-existing cells. And just like that, it all clicked. Cells don't just magically appear out of thin air, they have to come from other cells. So all those historical breakthroughs give us the two main rules of modern cell theory. Number one, if it's alive, it's made of cells. And number two, every single cell that exists today is part of an unbroken chain of life that stretches back billions of years. That's a pretty mind-blowing idea when you stop and think about it. Now, here's the thing. While all life is built from cells, not all cells are built the same way. In nature, you'll basically find two fundamental architectural blueprints. On one side, you have prokaryotic cells, like bacteria. Think of them as the tiny, efficient studio apartments of the cell world. They're smaller, simpler, and their genetic material just kind of floats around inside. But on the other side, you have eukaryotic cells. These make up, well, everything else. Plants, animals, us. These are the sprawling mansions. They're larger, way more complex, and full of different compartments called organelles that each have a specific job to do, including a proper nucleus to keep their DNA safe. And it's that complex eukaryotic cell that we're going to explore right now. To really get a handle on it, let's stick with our city analogy. We'll see all the different structures performing their specialized jobs to keep the whole city humming. So let's start the tour. Every city has to have a border, right? Some kind of border control. And in the cell, that's the cell membrane. Now, this isn't some rigid brick wall. It's a dynamic, flexible boundary that's in charge of everything that comes in and everything that goes out. And this border control is unbelievably sophisticated. It's what we call a selectively permeable barrier, which is just a fancy way of saying it's super picky about what it lets through. It's made of this fluid, oily layer of fat molecules with all kinds of proteins embedded in it. This flexible structure is absolutely crucial for everything from letting the cell grow to communicating with its neighbors. Okay, from the border, let's head to the heart of our city, the command center, also known as the nucleus. This is basically City Hall. It houses all of the city's most important and precious information, the genetic blueprints for everything. So inside the nucleus, all that DNA is perfectly organized into structures we call chromosomes. And from here, the nucleus directs all of the cell's activities. It's even got its own double membrane, the nuclear envelope, that has these little pores that act like guarded gates, controlling what information gets out to the rest of the cell. And just to give you some perspective on how much is packed in there, get this. If you could take all the DNA from just one of your cells and unwind it, it would stretch out to be about 2 meters long.
That is an absolutely incredible feat of biological engineering. So the nucleus holds the blueprints. But who's actually building everything? Who's doing the work? For that, our city relies on millions of tiny but essential factories called ribosomes. These little guys are the protein-making machines of the cell. And you want to know what makes them so special? Ribosomes are universal. I mean, they are so fundamental to life itself that you find them in every single type of cell, from the simplest bacteria all the way to our own. Without these tiny factories, life just wouldn't be possible. All right, so making proteins is one thing, but making sure they're finished properly, folded correctly, and then shipped to exactly the right address, well, that's a whole other challenge. This requires a huge, coordinated industrial network, the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus. The whole thing works like a cellular assembly line. You've got ribosomes on the rough ER making the proteins. From there, they travel to the Golgi apparatus, which you can think of as the city's main post office or shipping center. The Golgi modifies the products, sorts them, and packages them up for delivery. It's an unbelievably efficient logistics system. Of course, none of this, not the border control, not the command center, not the factories or the shipping network, none of it could run without energy. And that brings us to the power plants of our cellular city, the mitochondria. You've probably heard them called the powerhouses of the cell, and it's absolutely true. Through a process called aerobic respiration, they take fuel and convert it into the cell's main energy currency, a molecule called ATP. And what's really fascinating is that they have their own separate DNA and ribosomes, which is a big clue about their very cool evolutionary past. So, we've just had a super quick tour of our cellular city. But let's zoom out for a second. Why does understanding this tiny, microscopic world matter so much? What's the big picture here? Well, it all comes down to a really powerful approach called reductionist biology. The basic idea is that to understand a huge, complex system like an entire organism, we have to first understand its smallest, most fundamental working parts. By studying the city of the cell, we can start to understand the entire nation of the organism. This way of thinking has completely revolutionized medicine, and all of biology, really. And it leaves us with this final, powerful thought. Every single thing your body does, from thinking a thought to your heart beating, is the combined work of trillions of these cellular cities all working together. So if the secrets to life itself are written in the language of the cell, just imagine what we'll discover as we get better and better at reading it.